Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream. And many thanks to all the members of our community who will either join later on this stream or will watch video afterwards. Today is, of course, 2nd of June. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and I hope you will find this episode informative and useful due to direct talks between Russian and Ukrainian delegations in Istanbul that is scheduled for 1300 hours local time and Moscow time. We are in the same time zone. Later on today, approximately at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, probably, or maybe later, probably I will make second stream with all the latest news from Istanbul and in regards to some other major developments. So I'm announcing this now. And well, if you have any questions, dear friends, or comments that you want to be highlighted during the stream, as always, you can send it through support platforms, through PayPal, Boosty, for example, or during the stream itself, with the super chat on Rumble, and of course I will react on those questions and comments either during this stream or during the next stream. So anyways, I will react on your questions if I receive those through these support platforms. I have one question that I received from Boosty yesterday, and after news segment I will react on that question. And so I guess this is it for intro, and let's go through some news now. And well, first of all, of course, I'm going to be focused on yesterday's developments. So 1st of June most definitely will go down in Russian history as one of those dark days when nothing goes right or everything goes wrong. In the morning yesterday, news broke about relatively large-scale terrorist attacks of Kiev regime on Russian railway network. I spoke about this during yesterday's community chat live stream. 2 trains crashed in Bryansk and the Kursk region, although there was additional reports about more trains being targeted in Mariupol area, for example, in other parts. But what officially is known is that in Bryansk region, Kiev regime, this is not official statement, by the way. I am saying that Kiev regime, this Western-backed terrorist regime, blew up a bridge while civilian passenger plane was moving under. And as a result of this terrorist attack, a bridge collapsed on the train, and 7 people were killed. Up to 100 people were injured, and ones that are in critical condition being airlifted to Moscow, including several months old baby. This was in the Bryansk region, but also a bridge was destroyed in Kursk region, according to reports. Let's go through this news. A passenger and a freight train have crashed in the Bryansk and Kursk regions, with casualties reported. The main details are in this report updates. So, passenger train number 86 from Klimov to Moscow derailed at 22:44 Moscow time. The incident occurred due to illegal interference in transport operations. Governor of the region, Bogomaz, announced that the bridge was blown up while train involved in emergency was moving under this construction. The emergency occurred after structure of the road bridge collapsed into train as it passed underneath. This is the picture, by the way. As I said, 7 people were killed during this crash. Preliminary data was that 66 people were injured, but later on this number was updated. So this is the terrorist attack. Another train was a freight train, and according to reports, driver of that train was injured as a result of this terrorist attack. And of course, public media attention was focused on this terrorist attacks of Kiev regime. But later on, as you know, Kiev regime, with assistance of NATO member states, conducted a large-scale drone attack on Russian nuclear triad, on Russian strategical air force. But before that, there was a phone conversation between Rubio, head of State Department of US, and Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. Rubio expressed condolences to Lavrov in connection with their emergency near the Kursk and Bryansk. During their phone conversation with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio expressed condolences over the civilian casualties resulted from the bombing of railway infrastructure in the Bryansk and the Kursk regions. The Russian Foreign Ministry reported what a coward this Rubio is. Of course, he knows that this terrorist attack was conducted with assistance of CIA, right? What a coward this person is, man. But at this moment, when Lavrov and Rubio was expressing opinions, not just about these terrorist attacks, but also about upcoming Istanbul talks, news broke about these large-scale drone strikes on Russian strategical airfields. I spoke about this also during yesterday's live stream, but I think it is important to highlight some more nuances, some more details. The Russian Defense Ministry reported about these attacks and classified these attacks as terrorist attacks. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reported terrorist attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces on airfields, says headline on RIA Novosti. And we have some key statements of Defense Ministry. Kiev carried out terrorist attacks using FPV drones against airfields in the Murmansk, Irkutsk, Ivanovo, Ryazan, and Amur regions. In the Ivanovo, Ryazan, and Amur regions, all attacks were repelled, which is seems like to be true because due to pure luck, one of their trucks, which was carrying FPV drones, and by the way, these FPV drones were based in trucks, and these trucks then was stationed not far away from airfields. That was the plan of Kiev regime. And then at some point, these drones that was directed, according to some reports from Kiev, but I think London was involved, and maybe it was London that was directing this attack. Most likely that is the case. But anyways, then these drones were flown out of these trucks and targeting airfields. But due to pure luck, really, one of their vehicles, one of these trucks, exploded while it was on its way towards one of the airfields. And another two trucks were neutralized, according to reports, were neutralized by passers-by when they noticed that drones were, flying out of these trucks. They jumped on these trucks, and with stones and whatever they had in their hands, they smashed these drones, risking their lives, by the way. So basically, they did manage to save their day in some sense. And local authorities where this was occurring are considering now to award some, award these people for their courage. So yes, in Ivanovo, Ryazan, and Amur regions, all attacks were repelled. In Murmansk and Irkutsk regions, several aircraft caught fire as a result of drone strikes. I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page yesterday some of the videos from these attacks. And even though Kiev regime claims that about 40 or 50 planes were destroyed as a result of these attacks, this is false information. In reality, according to more or less reliable sources on internet, in Russian segment of, let's say, Telegram, for example, I can say that probably up to 10 planes were destroyed. Seems like 4 Tu-22s were destroyed or damaged as a result of these drone attacks, and also 4 Tu-95s. Both planes are strategical bombers. Tu-22s are long-range bombers. I think they class is the strategical bombers, and there are also for Tu-95s. You most definitely are familiar with these planes, silhouette of these planes. Also, according to some video footage that is available, one may argue that IL-76 transport plane was hit, and there are potentially AN-12 planes. So it's up to 10 planes, 10 planes overall, which is still a huge deal, obviously. And most importantly, this was an unprecedented attack on Russia's nuclear triad. And Russia's nuclear deterrent was clearly challenged by NATO, because obviously behind these attacks, we should see, I see definitely, UK and US. This attack could not happen without authorization of Trump and Stammer, president of US, and prime minister of UK. I have no doubts about it whatsoever, not even for a second, no matter what Western propaganda gonna say about it. So this is a clearly challenge to Russian nuclear deterrent. And for a reason, yesterday during the stream, I was saying that, 1st of June may go down in history as a day when fate of humanity was sort of decided, because consequences of this attack gonna be big, massive, I think. Right? Although let's go. Let's keep it in a chronological order. So yes, also it is worth noticing that unfortunately production of Tu-22s and Tu-95s are cancelled for quite a while ago, and therefore it will be extremely difficult for Russia to reintroduce these planes to Air Force, strategical Air Force. But maybe Russia will have no option but to accelerate production of Tu-160 strategical bombers, and that will be one of the results of these attacks. We'll find out. And in the stocks, there is quite a number of not Tu-95 strategical bombers, but Tu-22s for sure, and there may be some of those bombers can be updated and being back into service. That's possibility, I think. But let's go through some statements of Defense Ministry. The drones were launched from the territory located there in the immediate vicinity of the airfields, as I already said, from trucks. The fires have been extinguished. There were no casualties among military personnel or civilians. Some of their participants in a terrorist attack have been detained. So already some arrests have been made, and investigation is underway, of course, and probably in upcoming days we will learn some more about it. But clearly this was a bigger impact on Russia, huge, I will say, strike on Russia, on Russia's military, and also reputation, by the way. This was clearly serious, very serious breach of security, because yet again, we are talking about nuclear triad. We are talking about strategical bombers and their strategical airfields where potentially nuclear warheads could be located, right? Because the main purpose of strategical bombers, first of all, is to, if necessary, deliver nuclear strike on enemy forces. So definitely bigger deal, and obviously there is a huge celebration in the Western world, especially Russia hating Western world, and this celebration gonna continue for quite a while, I guess. But question is now how Russia is going to retaliate. What is going to be Russian steps? And yet again, because nuclear deterrence of Russia has been challenged, I think now only way to restore nuclear deterrence is to take some really, really decisive actions against their enemy that was involved in these attacks on nuclear triad. It's a key regime, obviously, Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. Also US and UK, at least, right? Maybe French intelligence was involved in this, and French leadership maybe Germany also, but US and UK 110%, million percent, by the way, million percent. And at one point yesterday, Axios published that Kiev warned the US about strikes on Murmansk and Irkutsk regions. So Axios come up with an article in which they claim that, according to Ukrainian authorities, let's go through this news, sir. Ukrainian authorities warned the administration of the US, Donald Trump, in advance of planned strikes on Murmansk and Irkutsk regions and 3 other regions. Axios portal reports citing unnamed Ukrainian officials, right? And what happened then is that, I guess either someone from CIA or from White House or maybe Pentagon called this Axios leadership, whoever is decision maker there, and ordered basically them to retrieve this information. And that's what they did. And they put up updated version in which they were no longer claiming that US leadership was informed about these attacks. Of course, they were informed, by the way. CIA was organizing this terrorist attack on Russian nuclear triad. No doubts about that. CIA and MI6 were involved million percent, right? Million percent. But for a plausible deniability, Axios was ordered to pull down their initial article. So as I said, by the way, now only question I have personally is how Moscow will restore nuclear deterrent. That was harmed, big time, right? Questioned big time. And the only way I can see is a decisive action against enemies that were involved in these attacks. It's a Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, US, and UK. Me personally, I don't think Russian president will authorize any military action against military assets of US and UK. I don't think he will do that, although he should, in my personal opinion. But when it comes to Kiev regime, yes, maybe today, tomorrow, day after, there will be some strikes here and there, and that's about it, right? So probably under current leadership of Russia, Russia's nuclear deterrence would not be secure. That's my take on the situation. Interfax is also reporting that, according to CBS, US did not provide Kiev with the information for strikes on Russian airfields. It's a kind of damage control now on part of US. Of course, US was involved in this strike on Russian nuclear triad. There can be no doubts about that, right? We all are grown-up people. We all understand that UK without authorization from Washington will do nothing like that. UK might play a leading role in this attack on Russian nuclear triad, but US was, of course, informed and engaged in the planning of this attack. No doubts about that whatsoever in my mind. Right, but there is some sort of a damage control on part of US now. We have this report that Kiev used its own information to strike Russian airfields. The US did not provide any data. CBS News White House correspondent Jennifer Jacobs reported on social media, citing sources in the US administration. Yeah, of course, yeah. Maybe aliens helped Zelensky's regime, but not US, man, not UK. No, they are angels, in the leadership of these terrorist countries. Okay. Yet again, unfortunately, I have no faith that under current leadership, Russia will manage to restore its nuclear deterrence, which is a big deal, obviously, because either you are nuclear superpower or you are not. And if Russia is not nuclear superpower, then why we have these nukes? Why Russia is spending God knows how many billions on maintenance of nuclear weapons? If Russian nuclear triad can be attacked like that, and without retaliatory strikes from Russia, it's a legit question, by the way, isn't it? And if Russian leadership is not willing to take whatever actions are necessary, then maybe they will just take these nukes and give it to US, because US will not hesitate. US didn't hesitate to nuke Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, right? And they will, they will never hesitate, basically, to use any force they find necessary against anybody, right? Okay, let's continue. And RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, it was not all over for yesterday, because later on, from late afternoon, evening time, Kyiv regime launched massive drone strikes on Russia. This time not with the FPV drones, but with aircraft type drones. And according to Russian Defense Ministry, air defense systems intercepted 162 Ukrainian drones between 8 o'clock yesterday evening and 2 o'clock this morning. So I guess since 2 o'clock, dozens more Ukrainian drones were intercepted. That was launched by NATO. Let's be real, it's NATO attacks on Russia. That was launched by NATO to strike deep into Russian territory and kill as many Russians as they possibly can. Maybe we will find out some more details on that. And well, one may ask, dear friends, what is the next, right? West is clearly escalating. NATO is clearly escalating with Russia big time. I mean, they are attacking Russian nuclear triad now. And what is going to be next? And I think I have an answer. Next is going to be transformation of this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky into a nuclear-armed regime. And I predicted that this will happen a long time ago. Veterans of our community know about that. And a couple of days ago, I said in one of my updates that I expect in upcoming days or few weeks max, topic of transformation of Kyiv regime into a nuclear-armed regime will be revived in the West once again. And that's exactly what happened. And I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page this information, for example, that British officer calls to arm Ukraine with nuclear weapons. At the Black Sea Security Forum in Odessa, British Army Colonel Richard Kemp reportedly called for the UK to assist Ukraine in developing its own nuclear weapons as a part of strategic partnership. And this is obviously big deal. Some might try to dismiss these statements, but come on, man, this is a colonel who would never ever say anything like that without being authorized by his command, right? So therefore, clearly, topic of transformation of Kyiv regime into a nuclear-armed regime is in a development, right? And I would not be surprised at all if we will learn sometime in the future that for this moment, for 2nd of June 2025, Western countries, preliminary, mainly US and UK, potentially France, already had helped Kyiv regime to acquire at least several atomic bombs, because I think Kyiv regime formally Kyiv regime already has potentially several atomic bombs, maybe even several dozen. And these atomic bombs will be under strict control of US and British secret services. They're not going to allow Kyiv regime to use them as they wish. These nukes, potentially these atomic bombs, maybe basic atomic bombs that were built with assistance of UK and US, but on materials that they took from Ukraine. Because radioactive materials can be traced, by the way, we all know that radioactive materials can be traced to the reactor where this, to the plant actually, where these materials being produced. Scientists well capable of doing so. So therefore, if my understanding of the big picture is correct, and UK and US already built number of atomic bombs, so that then they will use Kyiv regime to either blackmail Russia with atomic bombs, or even maybe they plan to use these atomic bombs against Russia. So that if they will use it, then radioactive materials will be traced back into nuclear plants on Kyiv-controlled territory. So that West will maintain sort of plausible deniability, if that will help at that point, right? So This is also important development. I think next phase of escalation definitely is going to be nuclear one. There is nothing is left, right? Long range strikes, it's already on its way. And I mean, what other long range strikes do you need, by the way? Take a look at the map. This is Murmansk, where this airfield was targeted. This is the airfield, by the way. Allegedly, that was hit with by NATO. Let's be real here. It was NATO attack on Russia. And this is another one in Irkutsk region. And this is allegedly airfield that was attacked. And by the way, some sources are even reporting that base of Russian nuclear submarines was attacked in the Murmansk region with the drones. Although officially, no one on the Russian side confirmed this information. So we just don't know if this information is true or not. But Russia's nuclear triad is definitely under attack for sure, right? Can be no doubts about that. So I expect next phase of escalation to be nuclear one, and at any point, Zelensky's regime might make statement that they already had acquired their atomic bombs. It might happen today, tomorrow, in a week or month's time, but this is definitely direction that the Western ruling class is pushing this proxy war against Russia. Let's continue with some more news. And RT is reporting that, well, UK, that is involved in all the terrorist attacks on Russia, all the hostility, including these attacks on Russian nuclear triad. UK now is claiming that they should prepare for direct conflict with Russia. So the UK plans to mobilize billions of pounds to booster its military-industrial base in preparation for potential conflict with Russia. Defense Secretary John Haley has stated, well, okay. London will invest about $8 billion in a long-range missile production, according to Haley. And, well, probably these long-range missiles will be used to strike deep into Russian territory. And they will claim that it was Kyiv regime. Not UK, but Kyiv regime. Okay. Get ready, UK, because maybe current leadership of Russia will do nothing, no matter how much Russia is targeted by NATO countries. But one day Russia will have different leadership. And then hopefully that another leadership will be not as hesitant to use whatever force is necessary to exterminate enemies of Russia. And then we will find out. We will all see what is going to happen. But if anybody has any doubts, by the way, that collective West, NATO is conducting proxy war against Russia, then I have this news for you, that special envoy of US President Donald Trump, Kat Kellogg, once again stated that this is a proxy war. This is NATO's proxy war against Russia. He said it openly during the interview with the Fox. So US presidential special envoy Kat Kellogg acknowledged on the Fox News that Russia's leader Vladimir Putin's words calling what is happening in Ukraine a proxy war against Russia were justified. We have a quote here. Putin, considers this proxy war of NATO countries. Frankly, that's how it is. Look at the support that European countries are providing, and Putin sees it. Not just European countries, US, by the way. Let's not forget that US is leading this proxy war against Russia. US is still leading this proxy war against Russia. And US is an enemy of Russia. We might don't like it. I certainly don't. But US is a Russian enemy. Existential threat for Russia. UK the same, France same, Germany same, all NATO, entire NATO is Russia's enemy, right? They are waging proxy war and they are saying it openly. I mean, what else they gonna do really? I mean, they're not gonna declare war, right? Because why would they? They have Ukraine in their pocket. And as long as there is anybody in Ukraine to be sacrificed for whatever agenda collective West has, then they will continue to do so. And if Ukraine is finished and they can no longer use it as their proxy, they will sacrifice some other country, maybe even NATO member state, right? They might use Baltics to provoke war. They might use Poland, by the way, to do the same. They might use Romania, Bulgaria, any of it. They will sacrifice literally any country, right? RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, while this whole stuff is happening, by the way, yesterday Russian delegation flown to Istanbul for to participate in a second round of direct talks with the Kiev regime. Many people are confused there, obviously, not just here in Russia, but worldwide there. Many people don't understand how it is possible that Russia continues to exercise restraint. Well, I don't understand also the difference. It is what it is, right? And that's why I think under current leadership of Russia, unfortunately, nuclear deterrent will not be restored. And I expect more attacks to happen on Russia's nuclear triad with impunity, because yet again, if Russia will, take action and target with a few missiles or a few drones some areas in Kiev controlled territory, what kind of impact that will have on real decision makers, real enemies of Russia that are in charge of their proxy in Ukraine? Would anybody in Washington or London or Paris or Berlin care about Russian strikes on Kiev controlled territory? Of course not. As long as they can throw into this proxy war anybody on Kiev controlled territory, literally anybody, they will continue to do so, right? And they will, God knows how many more operations they have in plans, right? Prepared to attack Russian nuclear triad, to attack Russian nuclear facilities. Yesterday, one of the channels on Telegram, for example, reported that 7 drones were intercepted over their Kursk nuclear power plant. I did not see this news on MSM, Russian MSM, but on Telegram channels, there was reports that 7 drones were intercepted over nuclear power plant, by the way. So it's not just Russian nuclear triad that was attacked, but also Kursk nuclear power plant. And who knows, yet again, how many more such attacks being planned by Washington and London, right? And they will not stop. And why would they? If Russian leadership is hesitant to do whatever is necessary, right, to stop them. And I think it is long overdue to use some extreme force. And extreme force should be used from the beginning, from the very first minute of this special military operation, to deter West, to deter Russian enemies. But it was not done then, and I don't think it will be done under current leadership. It is what it is. So Medinsky arrived in Istanbul as a head of Russian delegation, and today, as I already said, approximately at 1300 hours, talks between Russian and Ukrainian delegations should take place. Let's see how long these talks last, if there will be any more or less interesting information from Istanbul. Of course, as I said in the beginning, I will launch a second live stream this either afternoon, either evening, and I will share whatever additional information will be available, either about this useless talks in Istanbul or about any other major topic. And I say useless talks in Istanbul because I don't expect any breakthrough to be achieved there, obviously, and hardly anybody expects some breakthroughs. Maybe Russian delegation will just will give a memorandum to Ukrainian side with the Russian vision of the escalation and how peace can be achieved there. According to reports, Kiev regime already transferred to Russian side their memorandum. So they will exchange these papers, some statements will be made, and that's about it, right? Sides will take break for another week or 2 or 5 to to get know better what the demands of their opposite side is. But yet again, if anything interesting, of course, I will share information during this second update today. Meanwhile, special military operation continues, dear friends, and there we have this report that Russian military liberated the settlement of Alexeyevka in the Sumy region. Let me show you on the map this area. So as we all know, dear friends, Russian armed forces are creating buffer zone in the Sumy region. And this is Alexeyevka settlement that is under Russian control. And also on the western side of Alexeyevka, there is a Kondratovka settlement, which is, according to reports, also under Russian control. Although I did not see Russian Defense Ministry confirming this information about Kondratovka, but Defense Ministry did confirm the liberation of Alexeyevka. So maybe later on today or tomorrow, Defense Ministry will confirm liberation of Kondratovka also. And well, this is not all. When it comes to zone of special military operation, we have reports that Russian armed forces established control over Dachne settlement and moved forward in Dileevka settlement, which is also under Russian control. According to reports, this is northern eastern flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration, or one may argue southern flank of Toretsk sector. What else do I have prepared for this update? Well, this is interesting news that Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky announced mandatory evacuation from 14 settlements in the Dnipropetrovsk region. As you know, dear friends, and I report about it, Russian troops are basically in many sectors are on a border with Dnipropetrovsk region, and it's only a matter of order at this point, I guess, from general staff to begin operations inside the Dnipropetrovsk region. So Kiev regime is already evacuating 14 settlements. Earlier, I reported that Kiev regime declared a mandatory evacuation from over 200 settlements in the Sumy region. And in addition to that, mandatory evacuation was declared in another 13 settlements in the very same Sumy region. So overall, number of settlements that are under mandatory evacuation in the Sumy region is about 215 at this point, 2013, 2015, something like that. So this information definitely can be seen as an indicator that, well, the regime at least expects Russian offensives in the Dnipropetrovsk region and also in the Sumy region, where Russian troops quite successfully are creating this buffer zone. Vzglyad newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting that U.S. Senate is to begin preparing 500 percent tariffs against Russian partners. U.S. senators this week are set to begin working on a bill that would impose 500% tariffs on India, China, and other Russian trading partners. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, who is on Russia's list of terrorists and extremists, and Richard Blumenthal stated, Lindsey Graham was in Kiev, by the way, isn't it? Just yesterday or day before, and he was bragging about how they're gonna smash Russia and Russian allies with these 5% tariffs, 500% tariffs. And you know what? Let them adopt this law. I think this will actually serve Russia better and the world because not just Russian allies, but countries in this world will further accelerate isolation of collective West, which is definitely needs to be isolated, by the way. It's just too hostile to everything, too hostile to life itself, right? Collective West now is a main danger, existential threat for life, existence of life on this planet. That's how it is. So more crazier behavior of Washington is and collective West in general, then more incentives rest of the world has to truly isolate collective West as much as possible and just secure rest of the humanity, right? And people in the collective West countries that want to flee that territory, they should be able to do so. And I think Well, many people already are doing this and are coming to Russia, for example. And I think this is going to become not just a wave, but tsunami, and potentially tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even millions, by the way, in upcoming years will at least think about migrating to outside of collective West, because yet again, it is becoming a hellhole, right? That's what collective West is, and yet again, existential threat for life itself on this planet, any life. And meanwhile, by the way, you might laugh at this, but as if US don't already has enough problems. Well, Pentagon Chief Hexet stated that US is ready to fight and defeat China. So, I mean, of course, they are focused on China. They are existential threat for humanity, by the way. What can I say? Collective West, Western ruling class, Western so-called elites, globalists, whatever we're going to call them, they are existential threat for humanity and life on this planet. And they are confirming this basically literally on daily basis with their actions and with their statements. So Pentagon's chief Pat Hexet took part in a Singapore Security Forum Shangri-La dialogue. During his speech. Hexet emphasized that the United States does not seek conflict with China. Oh, really? That's why you are arming Taiwan, that you don't seek conflict, of course, but is ready to fight and win in the event of escalation in the Indo-Pacific region. And you know what? Let's be real here. US has not even the slightest chance to beat China. Not now, and definitely not in 10 or 15 or 20 years or ever. It's just not happening. And it will be better if finally this sickening elites in US and in the collective West will realize that they are not on the top of this world. They are nobodies, literally nobodies, right? And we will treat them as a nobodies. And eventually we will neutralize them. We, humanity, I mean, right? That's what is going to be. And unfortunately, societies in the collective West countries are in such a deep sleep that they are not even realizing how much threat their own elites are for them. Only, I mean, small informed minority sees their big picture, but unfortunately they're just not influential enough to change anything, really. Vast majority is in deep sleep and zombified basically at this point, and hardly ever will be able to either face the reality or acknowledge reality. It is what it is. And well, RIA Novosti is also reporting that Trump wants to talk with Xi Jinping because all these threats that US is issuing against China clearly is not working. And for whatever reason, Trump thinks that he has a charm and he has, personal abilities to basically influence leadership of other countries. And well, let's see. I don't think this is going to be the case. Xi Jinping is operating based on Chinese interests. It's not about his personality, his personal takes on something. It's about Chinese interests. So therefore, I don't think from a phone conversation between Trump and Xi Jinping that might happen this week, or even direct talk, anything gonna change. US political class is just simply unable to acknowledge that US is not on the top of the world, West is not on top of the world. They are not ruling this world, right? They are just a small part of it. That's it. Literally small part, by the way. It's collective West is about a billion people, right? Rest of the world is 7 or 8 billion. So collective West is literally small part of this world. And they should acknowledge that and realize time when Western world was dominating the rest of the world is finished and gone for good. And again, Trump, by the way, who is threatening to increase tariffs on steel from 25% up to 50%. He thinks that will help U.S. steel manufacturing. Maybe that will help, maybe not. Who knows? But clearly, current administration in U.S. is on this page, still on this page, when they are just trying to achieve something with these constant threats, bullying, and that kind of stuff. It did not work until now, and longer this game of Washington continues, less and less chances are that they will succeed, I guess. They might force some manufacturers in Europe, for example, to move their plants into US, their manufacturing capabilities. They might force businesses in collective West mainly to be focused on US, right? To build in US, to do whatever they are doing in US, to produce there. But when it comes to the rest of the world, I don't think this threats and bullying gonna go far. It is what it is. And dear friends, what the hell is going on, man? Okay, dear friends, I think this is it for a news segment. I think this is it for a news segment for now. And as I said in the beginning, I received question from on Boosty, by the way. I received a question on Boosty, and let me read this question that was sent by Mojo. Mojo, thank you very much for 370 rubles, which is about $5. Thank you for your donation. And question is, will there pro-Western forces in Russia pressure Putin to make concessions at Istanbul? Pro-Western forces want a rapprochement with the West. Putin respects and fears pro-Western forces in Russia. Well, Mojo, what can I say? I don't think Putin really fears pro-Western forces or anybody here in Russia, at least. I don't think so. Right? He is in charge, and yet again, he has such support from public based on studies that he cannot be challenged right now. Not in the political ways, not in any other ways, right? So pro-Western force is not gonna pressure Putin to do anything. That's how it is, objectively speaking, right? And these pro-Western forces, by the way, are or Western-controlled elements, let's say this way, that were more or less active. They're all gone from Russia. They flee Russia and are based now in US, in Europe, somewhere else, but not in Russia itself, right? And if before special military operation, these Western-controlled elements in Russia had their maybe, I don't know, 5% support, 7% support combined of public. Now this number is unbelievably less, because people that were more or less pro-Western, they realized that West is an existential threat for whole of Russia, for everybody here in Russia, right? People see that, well, they are waging proxy war against us, right? And trust me, I know personally people that had changed their minds. They were quite pro-Western, and now, no, man, they don't even want to hear anything about West, because they see this, how fake how this image of the West is, right? Image that was created through propaganda means by the West itself and Western assets worldwide. So people realize that this image that West was trying to create about democracy and human rights and this and that, morality and dignity and all that stuff, none of it is really on what our Western world is based. So therefore, support for these so-called pro-Western forces is on decline and big time. And I don't think in decades, by the way, I don't think at least in next several decades, percentage of people that are, see West as some sort of example towards which Russia should move, I don't think this number will reach anything of significance, real significance, right? That's the reality, by the way. I mean, I know, as I said, these Western assets have flee Russia, and they are in the Western. They are quite active on internet, and their algorithms, by the way, are built in a way that they are inflating their numbers on their videos. And you might see, some freaking idiot is saying some freaking crazy stuff, literally crazy stuff, nonsensical stuff on internet, and might have 2, 3, 5 million views. And you might think, what, these people must have some support in Russia, because look at the views, right? It's in Russian, so this must be Russians that are viewing this stuff. No, it's no, and it's all fake, right? These numbers are inflated, fake. And I remember a couple of months ago, there was an attempt of these pro-Western forces to organize some gathering in Berlin. That was, I believe, in Germany. And you know how many people showed up? A couple of dozens. It was a joke, by the way. It was joke, right? That's what Western forces are. So how are they going to influence Putin, by the way? No, Putin has its own vision of this world, his own vision, what is right and what is wrong. And I might disagree with some of its vision, right? I strongly disagree with the restraint that he is exercising, right? I think more decisive actions are needed, but yet again, I'm an ordinary citizen, right? He is the president of Russia, and his calculus is obviously different than mine is, because he knows much more than all of us combined will ever know, right? He has all the information that is there, right? Including classified one, and that's... So therefore, no one gonna influence Putin, by the way. He definitely not these pro-Western forces. He just has his vision, how things should be done, which way is better way for Russia. And we may agree or disagree with him, but he is a Russian president. He is elected by people, and we have to respect this, right? That's how it is. So once again, thank you, Mojo, for your question, for your donation. Was any donation through? There was a donation on PayPal from Klaus. So Klaus, thank you very much for your support. There was no question or the commentary to highlight. So thank you very much. And I guess this is it, dear friends, for this update. Hopefully you'll find it interesting, informative. And as I said, dear friends, later on today, I will launch a second live stream with all the additional information that will be available either from Istanbul or on other matters. Thank you all for your attention and support. Have a wonderful day, dear friends, peaceful day, and take care. And dear friends, if you come across my short clips that I might make from this live stream, if you have time, please open that video and click that like button. Maybe you can leave some commentary there and under this video, also in the comment section, if you can. And also let me notice, dear friends, that if you like my work, if you like this independent media project from Russia, and if you want to support, you can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment, including crypto address. So now this is it. Yet again, have a wonderful day, peaceful day, and take care. See you soon.